Welcome into another episode of the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast, but we have something in surprise for you. It is week 1 NFL football season. This is what we're going to call, ladies and gentlemen, the Sunday Stroll Edition. Two non-experts talking fantasy football, something that we love to follow. Obviously, I love to follow it if I'm wearing this hat in public. Detroit Lions. Sunday Stroll, where'd that name come from? It's the name of our personal fantasy league that Joe is the commissioner of. By the way, my name's Andrew Putters. This is Joe Nicely on the other screen. And this is the Sunday Stroll, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to fire away every week, give you a little bit of what we think is knowledge about NFL DFS. How you doing, Joe?
Doing good, man. Good to be with you. Ready for football. It's time. Oh, I'm pumped.
It is
Doesn't
time.
seem like it's here, but it's here. It's kind of weird.
It is time for football. I can definitely say that. We have went with no football. It is time for football. Okay. Week 1. We were worried it wasn't going to happen. We're here now. We're going to open up our phone, open up our computer, get on DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever. We're making our roster. How does Joe Nicely go about putting a roster together? Start at the beginning. Are you putting together like a starting quarterback you like, the most expensive player you want to play, somebody you just have to have? How's Joe Nicely starting his lineup?
I just like to – first of all, week 1 is always the most unpredictable week. We never really we think a lot. We're making a lot of educated guesses in week 1. There are a lot of teams that are the same, but there's also a lot of teams that have changed coordinators or changed coaches or changed personnel. So we're always guessing week 1. It's always kind of the biggest crapshoot, especially this year. There have been no preseason games, less time to practice, less time in camp, less time for rookies to get, work into the system. So I think there's just a lot of unknowns this week especially. But to answer your question, man, I kind of let the slate dictate that. I will try to zero in on some guys that I want to lock in lineups, whatever position they may be. I'll usually look for some games that I can maybe stack, like run a QB and a receiver, or QB and a tight end, and then maybe even run it back with a receiver or something from the other team, or running back, whatever it may be. I play GPPs mostly in the NFL, so I really like the stack option. I think it gives you the best opportunity to win a tournament. You got to have some things go right for you, but you do in any lineup. So that kind of narrows down if you can zero in and hit that one game on a stack. It really gives you a lot of upside to your lineup.
Right. And, one thing I always look at as far as, let's just say, receivers or running backs, obviously it's going to be a big plus if they catch balls out of the field, right? That's number 1.
Yeah, especially on DK, where it's a 1 point PPR. It's 1 point PPR. So, yeah, man, we've seen guys like McCaffrey be beast type of players on DraftKings because they do catch so many passes out of the backfield. And that's what I want to target. I'm always willing to spend up at running back if I need to. Occasionally we can catch some guys, at reduced prices when there's some injuries as we get on into the year. But I'm always willing to spend up at running back because I do feel like in football it's probably the most predictable position that we can kind of figure how many touches these guys are going to get per game fairly accurately. Whereas wide receiver, I'm willing to gamble a little bit more because, even the best wide receivers can have bad games. That position is much tougher to peg and much more game flow dependent. So I'll spend up at running back, try to save some money at wide receiver, look for guys with big upside.
Yeah. Running back, I always feel like you're going to find that one running back, maybe that's a second or third string, right, that is for whatever reason is going to get the carries that week. We don't know that going into week 1. Obviously, there's going to be less of that knowledge. That's what I look for as far as running back. I'm with you, though. You got to look at your Austin Ecklers and your Christian McCaffreys and whoever is playing running back for Kansas City that week, as who's going to catch balls out of the backfield. Even last year we saw Aaron Jones just go off several weeks in a row. Obviously Alvin Kamara whenever he's healthy. The guys that are just going to get in there and get, a lot of that going on. And when these running backs that catch a lot of balls out of the backfield, guess what? Their backups are going to catch balls out of the backfield too when they're not playing. So, we're still uncertain on the Kamara situation. We think he's going to play Thursday night or Sunday, but we don't know. So, with that being said, if he doesn't play, Murray is definitely somebody you're going to want to roster at his price. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a situation to keep an eye on. I think he'll go. I think they're going to get this contract thing done, and I think he'll go and hopefully be healthy this year. I don't think he was for the large majority of last year. We got some experience with Kamara. He played here at the University of Tennessee. We both live in Knoxville, so we know just how explosive he is, and didn't look like himself last year. I thought he was obviously hurt. Played hurt for most of the year. So hopefully he's healthy. They can get his contract done. Definitely a guy we can look at. Playing a pretty tough Tampa Bay defense, though. But a couple other guys that you mentioned for sure are on my radar. McCaffrey is kind of the undeniable PPR running back king. The dude is just ridiculous, puts up video game numbers. You can even look at the guy on the other side of that matchup, the Raiders, Josh Jacobs. Hopefully they're going to throw him the ball a little bit more this year. He was a real workhorse back last year as a rookie, really impressive, but did not get a lot of looks out of the backfield. So hopefully they'll bring him into the passing game a little bit more. I think that's something they've talked about wanting to do. And you mentioned Eckler, man, who I just absolutely love. Overall season and week one against Cincinnati, who really struggled against the run last year. Melvin Gordon's obviously gone. Phillip Rivers is gone. You got Tyrod, the check down god in there. Tyrod Taylor, he's going to be dumping little checkoffs to Eckler just all day long. It's been his MO his whole career. So Eckler's probably one of my favorite plays on the board. He's a guy that I would try to get in at running back, try to squeeze in my flex if need be. A player that I really want some exposure to that first week.
Yeah. So about that, you get Eckler in this year's fantasy league?
Yeah. I got him in our league. I think I got him. He lasted longer than I thought. I think I got him the end of the second round.
Yeah, I've had him the last 2 years, and he has been a massive put the team on your shoulders and take him to the finish line kind of back. Even when Gordon came back, they had a dual running back, which is I'm kind of expecting maybe the same thing once Justin gets healthy out there in San Diego. They're going to do a dual running back set everybody because Eckler can play any position on the field.
Yeah. I just look for, like I said, man, I don't know that his carries are going to just skyrocket. Maybe the first few weeks until that situation kind of works itself out, they'll use him more as a workhorse type of back. But I think we can pretty well pencil him in for 20 touches a game, whether that be 12, 14 carries and 6-8 passes. I think it's going to be a 20 to 22 touch kind of week. For him there the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think whenever Gordon came back last year from his injury, I think Eckler lined up at receiver over half the game from that point out. Could have done something with the injury situation, but the guy's going to get the ball, period.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
sure.
As far as receivers go, picking receivers, I tend to go towards, the teams where they're, kind of going into the game, they're going to throw it 40, 50 times. Which normally would say New Orleans is going to be that team. However, it seems his Drew Brees' pass attempts has gone down steadily. I see two wide receivers that are high up in pricing are Godwin and Evans, and I just don't see Brady throwing it 35, 40 times a game, and they're the highest two this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I really like both players a lot. and I think that Tampa Bay offense has a chance to be really good. And we know without a doubt that Brady's going to be an upgrade at quarterback as far as real life football team quarterback. But I don't know that he's going to be a huge upgrade for those guys from Jameis Winston. A couple of years ago, Winston Fitzpatrick just aired it out relentlessly. And then last year we saw Winston do the same thing, man. He would make a bunch of mistakes, but those mistakes would kind of force them to be aggressive on offense. So Evans and Godwin just got, a ton of looks, really concentrated usage on that team. I think you'll see it be spread out a little bit more this year with the Gronk being there and with them bringing all these running backs in that they're going to want to try to get the ball to, maybe protect Brady a little bit when necessary. I love those guys as players. They have a chance to have really good seasons, but I don't know that the explosiveness is necessarily going to be better with Brady in there versus Jameis.
I would agree 100% on the wide receiver situation there in Tampa. I mean, I feel like it's probably – now granted, their coach loves to be on offense. I mean, he would almost give up touchdowns just to go back on the field. But I don't really see them – I see them very similar to what New England did in ball control. They got skilled players. They have a lot of them. I also have a hard time seeing that with Gronk and Brady being reunited game one, we have seen numerous times whenever a player comes to play with Brady the first game, or it's a good situation or it's a PR situation, he's going to feed them to the rock. I mean, he did it with AB. He did it with the guy from Cleveland, Josh, what's his name? Receiver. Josh Gordon. Feeds them rock relentlessly that first game. I could see this first game with Gronk coming back. All of a sudden, Gronk gets 10 looks and 5 of them being in the red zone. That's what I'm personally hoping because he's on our fantasy team in the league.
Right.
But that's what I'm seeing week one. After that, I can't say that. They're going to want them all to stay healthy. Hopkins with a question mark beside his name. What do you think about that? He just signed a big deal. Is that what are you thinking about questionable on Hopkins?
I haven't seen a ton on that. I think he'll be good to go, man. And I think it's going to be a great fit for him out there. I'm not in love with that matchup week one. We know how good this San Francisco 49ers defense is, or how good they were last year, and we have to assume they're going to be one of the best units in the league again this year. So kind of glance at Kyler Murray and DeAndre and Drake, some really good offensive pieces that I'm sure will want to play a lot this year, but I don't know that that's a great matchup in week one against the Niners.
Yeah, my two sleepers in week one is going to be DJ Moore at Carolina against Vegas. New coaching staff, very good coach, everything I've seen on him. We'll see how he does in the NFL. And Stephon Diggs got something to prove up there in Buffalo with a great quarterback up there. In my opinion, Stephon Diggs, very talented if he can keep his sideline antics at bay. We don't know. What do you think about those two shout-outs?
I like them both. A little concerned about Moore with Bridgewater, but Bridgewater's proven himself to be competent. We know they're going to run that offense through McCaffrey, but Moore's played really well. I think he's a talented receiver. Same goes for Diggs, who's probably not going to get as many looks in Buffalo, but who's going to have a chance to really have some explosive games, some big games, because Allen does have such a huge cannon arm, and Diggs is really dangerous downfield. So, I think we saw that from John Brown some last year, just kind of some blow-up games. So I think there's a good chance that you'll see some of those from Diggs this year. Like you said, the key thing is going to be is if, he can kind of keep his composure and stay focused on those games where he's just got 2 targets in the third quarter. I think there's going to be some of those in his future. But I also think he's got a chance to really post some big games in certain situations.
Moving on to tight ends, Joe. I didn't tell you we was going to get this detailed coming in, but
let's go, baby. Let's roll. It's football time.
Moving on to tight end. You got basically, in my opinion, the way he's used Kittle and everybody else. Now, in saying that, there's other talented tight ends at times that can go off. But it seems like he's going to get the standard looks week in, week out from his coaching staff. Hooper last year, I think, was actually the most prolific tight end point wise. However, I mean, he was getting like 12 targets a game from noodle arm Matt Ryan. And he's on a different team. So with a bunch of ball hogs up there and a mediocre quarterback up in Cleveland. So let's take Kittle and Hooper out of the equation. Who you liking at tight end?
Yeah, Kittle, man, is obviously he's far and away the top tight end option this year, just because he is so talented and has got a great matchup. Arizona was dead last against tight ends last year. I remember it was just you would click on tight end and scroll down and try to find who's playing Arizona every week last year. They were that bad. So we don't know where they're going to be this year, but certainly with Kittle, it doesn't even matter. Guys almost matchup proof. But if we're taking him out of the equation, the guy you kind of cross paths with there, Austin Hooper's replacement, Hayden Hurst, coming out of Baltimore. Really explosive guy, really talented guy. And I like his matchup against Seattle. We always think about Seattle having a great defense, but they were the only team that was worse was Arizona than Seattle against tight ends last year. So Hurst has kind of been stuck behind Mark Andrews in Baltimore. They brought him in to replace Hooper. There's a lot of balls that need to be spread around on that offense, but I think Hurst has a chance to have a really good game and a good season.
Yes. So I'm all on Hurst. That's why I drafted him, even though I already had Gronk on my team. I just feel like it could turn to a situation where you don't know if Gronk's even going to play every week. But however, Hurst is going to be – I think he's going to have a breakout year, in my opinion. I love Hurst. I think that one of the most talented tight ends, obviously, with my hat on, is C.J. Hawkinson up in Detroit, but he's still injured. I just read the other day that his ankle is still not 100%.
Really?
So, that's kind of concerning because he is – I mean, he passed all the he checks all the boxes: speed, catching ability, blocking, size, knows the offense. Just remember last year he had the 40-point week one, and then didn't catch another pass. So
right.
I don't know, man. I think you definitely need to secure some. You need to look and see the tight ends that are going to get targets in week one. This is the $1 million question: flex play. Where you at on flex play? The most complicated position to do.
Yeah, I like to lean running back there. Obviously there are some exceptions on certain weeks and certain slates. They all shake out differently. But for the most part, I like to go running back. It's not super fancy, but it works. Like I said, it's production that we can feel relatively comfortable about predicting. And I just think you're giving up a lot of points, man, to leave running back out of your flex. I know there's some spots where you might want to go a different direction, but you can catch some cheap wide receivers on certain weeks. Even some guys will play 2 tight ends, but I tend to stick, kind of to the basics in that spot and go with running back. The guy we touched on who I've been getting a ton of is Eckler. I'll definitely either slot him in at flex or one of the running back spots in week one. I really do like him.
Yeah, one person that came across my view is a lower price starter, and that's Marlon Mack. I think he's around 5,000 or something, 5,100. I love him in that if you can figure out how to fit him in because he's definitely going to get the looks. I know that historically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking Taylor's going to take his job, Jonathan Taylor, who they drafted, who's a really explosive back. I think a lot of people are expecting that he's going to take Mack's job, but Mack was a really solid player last year. Probably not as explosive as we think Taylor's going to be. Maybe not as good as at catching the ball out of the backfield for sure, but I don't think Taylor's there yet. He hasn't been named the starter yet that I know of anyway. So Mack's kind of an intriguing call there.
Yeah, and I think probably the lock play of the week is going to be playing the Eagles defense up against that whatever that team is called in Washington. I'm looking right now on the website. It's called Washington Football Team.
Yeah, I think that's just what they're rolling with, Washington Football Team or Washington Football Club or something.
Yeah.
I was looking at that game just a tiny bit, just kind of starting to dig into the slate just very minimally, but I was looking at McLaurin, Terry McLaurin. I felt like he was underpriced. I know what you're saying about taking the Philly defense, but just throw kind of a cheap receiver out there. McLaurin jumped out as being underpriced to me. I think he's like 5,600 or something. He was right there with John Brown. And I feel like he's a really high upside wide receiver that we could maybe look at.
Yeah, there's just no telling what's going to go on with that football team.
Yeah.
We're
guessing on a lot of things, but especially that team. New head coach, new coordinators, second-year quarterback. They're going to be rolling with Haskins. They released Adrian Peterson. And that's an option you might want to look at, a kind of a cheap running back options. Antonio Gibson, a guy who people feel is really talented and think that he will step into the kind of the running back role there at Washington since they let Adrian Peterson go. So there's another kind of a cheap play you might want to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, as far as more on the injury front, I know it's not going to be on the main slate, but I saw where Malcolm Brown will be starting up in L.A. for the this week. So that's something you can put in your notes. So on the way out, is there a game you like this weekend against the number?
Kind of like the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football against the Rams. We saw the Rams take a pretty sharp decline last year. We know the Cowboys are loaded offensively. But I kind of like the boys. I've seen them at 2.5. That's the one that jumped out to me is Dallas Sunday night.
I'm loving your team. The Tennessee Titans opened at the 1-point dog. Now you can find them as high as -2.5, most likely -1 in most places. Tennessee Titans, I just don't see them taking a step back at all this year with that roster. They're playing a who knows what's going to happen Denver Broncos team. Very inconsistent. Going on the road don't matter. Monday Night Football, 10:20 p.m. Eastern Time, Tennessee Titans.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, all right, man. So once again, this is going to be something we're doing every week. This is the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast, Sunday Stroll Edition. By the way, the music you heard come in and going out is some friends of mine, Crab Apple Lane. I'll put a link in the show notes where you can find their music anywhere out there. That's Joe Nicely. I'm Andrew Putters, signing out.
Go, go, go!